The orbital proving ring drifted dangerously close to a pulsar, its reinforced hull shimmering under constant radiation shielding. To Commander Threxel, that proximity was symbolic. Only those meant to survive had any business training here. He stood at the center dais of the briefing chamber, his chitinous limbs folded neatly behind his back, eyes scanning the newest intake of candidates with practiced disdain. 48 recruits. 20 species. 1 human. A mistake, surely. Threxel accessed the galactic archive with a flick of his neural implant. Human designation, Terran. Origin classification, Class 7 Deathworld. Marginally hostile. Overrated, he decided. The database showed frequent internal conflicts, environmental volatility, and dangerously primitive survival claims. But compared to true Deathworlds, laughable. The human woman sat alone near the rear of the chamber, boots planted firmly on the deck, posture relaxed but alert. Her name tag read Mara Klein. Brown hair braided tight, sleeves rolled up, eyes calm. No visible augmentations. No ceremonial armor. Threxel found that concerning, but dismissed it. Advanced Deathworld training begins now, Threxel announced, his voice translated crisply into standard. Historical data indicates a 70% failure rate within the first 4 cycles. Injuries are expected. Fatalities are acceptable. A ripple of unease passed through the non-human recruits. A scaled Dravani raised a clawed hand. Commander, the human, her world is not ranked among the extreme classifications. Why is she here? Threxel's mandibles clicked in amusement. Because the coalition insists on inclusivity. Humans rarely survive beyond preliminary exposure. I estimate she will withdraw before the second trial. Mara glanced up at that, catching the stares, and offered a small, polite smile. Threxel felt irritation spark. Confidence without justification was inefficient. The first trial began immediately. The recruits were deployed into Simulation Sphere 9, atmospheric toxicity, unstable gravity, and predatory megafauna calibrated for maximum attrition. The ground buckled as soon as they landed. Several species collapsed instantly under the gravitational strain. The air burned. Mara staggered once, then adjusted her breathing. Her boots dug in. Her eyes sharpened. Within minutes, screams echoed through the sphere. Acid-spitting quadrupeds tore through the weakest trainees. One crystalline being fractured under its own weight. Threxel watched from the control deck, expression satisfied. Then he noticed the human. She wasn't running. She was observing. Mara moved deliberately, scavenging materials, testing soil, tasting the air with careful breaths. When a predator lunged, she sidestepped, drove a blade upward, and moved on without hesitation. Threxel leaned closer to the display. Interesting, he thought. But interest did not equal survival. By the end of the third rotation, half the cohort was gone. Medical evacuations filled the logs. Emergency beacons blinked across the control screens like dying stars. Commander Threxel reviewed the casualty list with approval. The system was functioning as designed. Then he checked Mara Klein's vitals. They were stable. Heart rate elevated but controlled. Cortisol levels within expected ranges. Oxygen saturation holding despite the toxic mix. Muscle degradation minimal. Impossible. Threxel recalibrated the sensors personally, suspecting malfunction. The human appeared again on the feed, crouched beside a steaming fissure in the simulated terrain. She removed her gloves, dipped a strip of meat into the bubbling liquid, and waited. "What is she doing?" an assistant whispered. Mara withdrew the strip, shook off residue, and bit into it thoughtfully. Threxel froze. That creature's tissue was laced with neurotoxins capable of liquefying Dravani nerve clusters. The thermal vents contained corrosive compounds banned under coalition law. Mara chewed. Swallowed. Nodded. Need salt, she muttered. By rotation 5, only 16 trainees remained. Most avoided the human now, watching her from a distance with a mixture of fear and awe. She built shelter where others collapsed. She harvested predators instead of fleeing them. She boiled roots until the heavy metals separated, then used the starch as a binding agent. When another trainee collapsed from exhaustion, Mara dragged them into her shelter without complaint. She shared water. Shared heat. Shared food. Threxel's mandibles twitched in agitation. During the scheduled rest cycle, the monitors showed something that made his blood run cold. Mara had assembled a cooking surface from scavenged alloy. Over it, chunks of predator meat sizzled. She sprinkled crushed mineral leaves across the surface, releasing aromatic vapor. Another surviving recruit stared. That thing killed my broodmate. Yeah, Mara replied calmly. But it's high protein once you neutralize the venom. She handed him a portion. He declined and retreated. Threxel slammed a claw against the console. This is not survival, he hissed. This is defiance. The final trial was prepared ahead of schedule. Simulation Sphere 12, volcanic instability, airborne ash, temperatures exceeding Lead's melting point. A true end-stage environment. No species had ever completed it unassisted. Threxel watched as the remaining trainees deployed. One by one, they fell back, burned, or broke. Only the human advanced. Mara emerged hours later carrying 2 unconscious survivors, her suit scorched, skin blistered, expression steady. She deposited them at the extraction point and stood at attention. Permission to speak, Commander, she said. Threxel stared, shaken. Granted. There are edible crustaceans near the magma flows, Mara continued. If processed right, they'd improve rations. She paused. Also, they're delicious. Silence spread across the control deck like a vacuum. Commander Threxel did not respond immediately. His worldview, constructed over centuries of doctrine and data, had developed fractures. He replayed the footage again and again, searching for error. There was none. Mara Klein stood calmly at the center of devastation, surrounded by environments designed to break armies. She was injured, exhausted, and undeniably successful. Human, Threxel said at last, his translator struggling to convey uncertainty. Explain. Mara shifted her weight, considering. Explain what, sir? How you endure conditions calibrated to exceed biological tolerance. She shrugged. We adapt. That is insufficient. Mara frowned slightly. Okay. Earth has bacteria that kill you if you drink the wrong water. Plants that poison you if you eat them raw. Animals that bite, sting, inject venom, or crush you. The weather floods cities. The ground shakes. The sun gives you cancer. We grow up learning what hurts us and figuring out how to keep going anyway. Threxel absorbed that in silence. We don't call it surviving, she continued. We call it living. He dismissed the remaining trainees and summoned a private debrief. Mara entered alone. No escort. No restraints. You violated no rules, Threxel said slowly. But you shattered projections across every metric. She nodded. Happens. Earth's classification, he said, is inadequate. Mara raised an eyebrow. We've been saying that. Threxel accessed the Galactic Registry and initiated a revision request. Class 7 was insufficient. Class 8 failed to account for cultural normalization of danger. Class 9 underestimated adaptability. He paused, mandibles clicking softly. What do humans consider their greatest survival asset, he asked. Mara thought for a moment. Honestly? Sharing food. If you can eat together, you can survive together. Threxel ended the recording. Weeks later, the revised classification passed unanimously. Earth was no longer measured solely by environmental hostility, but by the beings it produced. Instructors rewrote training manuals. Simulations were adjusted. Culinary contamination warnings were added. Mara Klein graduated at the top of her class. As she boarded her transport, Threxel watched from the viewport. For the first time in his career, he felt something unfamiliar. Respect. Earth, he noted privately, was not dangerous because it tried to kill its inhabitants. It was dangerous because it trained them to endure, adapt, and thrive in places the universe itself feared. And worse still. They brought lunch. The report circulated quietly at first, buried among hundreds of training revisions and casualty assessments. But data has a way of surfacing when it challenges assumptions. Within months, Earth's reclassification became required reading at coalition academies. Not because of Mara Klein. Because of what she represented. New instructors studied human case files with caution. Simulations were altered. Deathworld metrics expanded to include psychological resilience, cultural exposure to hazard, and the alarming tendency of humans to turn threats into resources. Commander Threxel was summoned before the Strategic Council. He expected reprimand. Instead, he was asked questions. How many humans could replicate Klein's performance? Threxel answered honestly. Enough to warrant concern. Concern of what kind? He hesitated. Underestimation. Humans began appearing more frequently in advanced programs. They did not dominate by strength alone. They improvised. Shared. Cooked. When supplies failed, they adapted. When morale collapsed, they stabilized it. They did not panic where others did. Mara herself declined offers of command. She returned to Earth briefly, then re-enlisted. When asked why, she answered simply. There's always something worse out there. Might as well be ready.